Many of you are thinking about buying a piano. Some are thinking of getting rid of your old one. At the end of the day, most are influenced on price, but it is actually quite the wrong choice, and this video explains why. The video, which you will hear, is not only about the pianoforte, which is the proper word for it. It is also especially about the process of language in sound and the process in language as conveyed through various imaginations. The piano I am selling on eBay is represented in part by my other pianos, which I cannot afford as a limited to sell. And that is why I have put together this explanation of one of my cheaper pianos, they're not the one from £250, that explains through pathos why the derisions exist in history as much, by the relationship between the common man, the common girl, or the state, and the process of art. You will hear in my video my composition which I have written, which is called Pathos. Pathos, people will tell you cannot write pathos, or you cannot put on a play about pathos. As most people, you describe to them a piano, and they understand what you're saying. But when you use the word or pianoforte or piano on its own, it means very little. So originally I posted this content in relation to the finale of the musical Hair, which had its expurgation in Chalk Farm over many years, and where it's sung as a background, one of my videos. But you might ask Louis Singer, who is Shakespeare, you would not expect to get the right answer. But is there any real truth about history which can provide the answers to who people really were? That finished in an ancient, or an instant, the grand piano for the player who could never spell sanity. That the pathos about Julie Waters in Educating Rita with Mr. Michael Caine made the Hanwell Brass Band, which produced my work once under conductor Barbara Stone in the olden days of yore, makes the truth about the fact Shakespeare mine is truly finished. A part of the reason for that is that you read about the Shakespeare who was not a musician, but no doubt who thought creatively in terms of artistic principles. I created the two compositions, Joanna Man and Playgirl Lullaby, that they could not publish only because I could not spell it or fluke or cheat by whatever system made Eleanor Rigby great. For I went to college with the girl I truly love, Eleanor Rigby. The girl from Liverpool who oozed concrete Shakespeare. That's my version, you say, there she goes again. That she has not told in any noise played on the net the length of the grand piano she is selling. Viewer, that is because the approach to music, if it was going to be decided by how long is the strings, would be effectively as much as Amadeus Wolfgang Mozart laughed once in the film Amadeus, where it was expressed that he would choose a marriage partner by the size of the bed that was required for her, and that he called his opera The Marriage of Figaro. You may be au fait with that. So the noise which you listen of mine is pathos, but it tells you no lies. It is the noise of the corrupting of the producing and the invention of the art, which is as much important to the finality and the principle which it expounds as the whole finished product. The bids were never real. That with Educating Rita, the truth about the Juliet I want to know, that Juliet about living Ellen Rigby I want to wed, and why this music teacher was more the physical teacher who could not tolerate mathematics standing still. That is why the Professor Michael Caine is so more greatly playing himself in educating Rita, that you can see why the system for me failed. That made when I called my girl friend, the one from the balcony scene I wrote for you, would never publish because you were second-rate publishers. That is but good now. We have come now to know who we are, and we have the Berlin Wall go up in 1961. I wrote also the war game that I could not play it to you on the piano as I did not want it stolen. Pal, so you can rob and sell your own pianos with my compositions, so you become the true hit Google remembers by as many as I hits, because I am less than those who corrupt by cheating. For instance, if you listen, for instance, they claim, don't they, that the assistant playwright, who was also one of the competitors, as it were, of William Shakespeare, was a man called Marlowe. Well, we know what, or we don't know what is true greatness, is there? When you choose a story, on what basis do you choose it? The plot, or do you choose it on how brilliant or famous is the player or the writer in the case of the story? Most people claim they can listen to Much Ado About Nothing and understand it, or understand what is love with Romeo and Juliet. But what few people understand is how the essence of history through the years has become eroded by the state which is handling its past, and that as much as the histories of the Rhine through to those back regarding Turkey, and back to the times even before the time of Christ and Roman times. Even the Mayor of London, Mr. Boris Johnson, who was the Mayor of London, has admitted that there is some degree of incredulousness in the ability for anyone, for instance on Google, to spot what is truly great. Or indeed they tried to reinvent the Roman Empire countless times. Or you might as well say, well, you tried to write Romeo and Juliet better than Shakespeare. But at the end of the day, part of the essence of how these things appear is what they tell us about the past, the times, and what was really happening in your country, or your world, or your life. So it's Pathos that, I am Fernando Ray playing it, and the composer. And who can get it published? I cannot get it published any more than many compositions which I've written. But I'm not complaining about that any more than I'm complaining about those who would not buy my piano. But there is something more than length that inspires someone to make a marriage bed. So, take your eyes, feast on this, that you may see at long last. Die meiste singer von Nuremberg, putting it together, never broke the empire, but then she makes the cinematography don't ride much. You know, Fernando, you are all they call the idiot. Well, red graves are mere actors built for some guards, most of whom I did never know, for I am as many of your lovers already dead, that of Bosworth, 1485, King Richard III. For I know what destiny truly is, but they, who never had so much as seen this field, leave it to me. And you, and what do you thank them for it? Or do you curse them for it, that field? And why I need the money may be because I have no interest whatsoever in both humanity, or the thing therein called empire. That whether it be the empire, be it of the sun, be it is of some Pathos, that you ride like the wings of this angel. But then, there is more to length. There is more to furniture. Just furniture, one fellow said. How can art be just furniture? It was expressing of their piano. Pathos, isn't it? Shakespeare, you would say, was the most brilliant writer. But Byron employed a fire master to prepare artillery, and took part in the rebel army under his command, despite his lack of military experience. Oh dear, before the expedition could sail, on the 15th of February 1824, he fell ill, and the usual remedy of bloodletting weakening him further. He made a partial recovery. In early April, he caught a violent cold, which the therapeutic bleeding insisted by his doctors aggravated. It is suspected this treatment, carried out utilized medical instrumentation, unsterilized, caused him to develop sepsis. He developed, Byron, a violent fever and died in Massillon here in 19th of April. In 1824. His physician at the time, Julius von Millingen, son of the Dutch-English archaeologist James Millingen, was unable to prevent his death. It's been said that if Byron had lived and had gone on to defeat the Ottomans, he might have been declared King of Greece. However, contemporary scholars have found such an outcome unlikely. Mavrocordatus and Byron planned to attack the Turkish-held fortress of Lepanto at the mouth of the Gulf of Corinth. Byron employed a firemaster to prepare artillery, and we hear all about that. You can read it all. But how do you play a piano? What is a concert pianist? What is a piece of music, and what is playing, for instance, Bach or Rachmaninoff all about? Well, it is something more than the colour of the wood, the length of the strings. And this reader is listening to Pathos that we take from this little nettle of danger is taken from Neville Chamberlain's quote from Hotspur's speech in King Henry IV. Out of this nettle danger we pluck this flower safely. And the next thing, viewer, what happened next after Chamberlain said that in 1938 in September? You went to war. And that is your level of tolerance, isn't it, for the German piano or the English piano? Or which one was better? And which one will you not listen to, or you will listen to, because you already have preconceived ideas? Well, Gibbs' book, for instance, which provides a narrative of events of the abdication crisis from then in 1936 of King Edward VIII to the Munich Agreement of September 38, was the first book to be publicized on these matters in 1939. It was an immediate success, but they marked these words by something as this fall. And you choose a piano as a piece of furniture. Have you ever chosen a pianist by how for somebody's name was even sounding, how famous? I mean, Fernando Ray. Who really has ever heard of Fernando Ray? Buried by cons accompanying there's money. You don't need to get your money out. You can use the pay. You can click the PAL. You can click my films. And can you bother to open up your heart to more than the length of the strings? Or more than the service contract which some place will give you, which caused, for instance, the collapse of a famous Orchard Place piano purveyor in the early 20s, in 1923, who lived at Wembley. And it wouldn't bear to mention names, but the names which are great of all time, most of the great pianists, are already extinct. And very often you're buying something like you call cello. It's not British at all, it's French. Or it's less French, it is more Chinese, because they are made under that license of their equivocation of greatness. But what does it mean? Very little. Unless you accept, for instance, challenge comes from challenge, which is a challenge to all of you. Pathos viewers like you. The expectant mother that never attempted to even marry me. Pathos you are listening to. I wrote it. Shakespeare could not write it on a sixpence because he was not an artist in the sense of musical language. That is why you are going to buy my piano, or you may end up a pauper viewer. Thank you for listening. All the best.